Doing fine. I used to tell people I was fine. Not great, not terrible, just fine. And most of them believed me because I said it calmly, because I kept moving, because nothing in my life looked broken from the outside. But the truth is, I didn't realize I was falling apart until I stopped having a reason to keep going. The day it started wasn't dramatic. No fight, no goodbye, no moment you'd remember years later and say, that's when everything changed. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I hated Tuesdays. Too far from the weekend to pretend relief was coming. I was sitting in my car outside the grocery store, engine still running, hands on the steering wheel, and I couldn't make myself open the door. I wasn't tired. I wasn't sad. I was empty. And that scared me more than panic ever had. I stayed there for 12 minutes. I know because I checked the clock afterward, like it mattered, like time still had rules. Eventually, a woman knocked on my window. She looked annoyed. "You gonna move?" she asked. I nodded, apologized, drove away, left with nothing in the trunk except the silence I'd brought with me. That night, I called my brother. We weren't close. We'd never been close. But he answered. "What's up?" he said. I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to tell him I didn't recognize myself anymore, that I felt like a guest in my own life. Instead, I said, "Just checking in." He paused. "Okay," he said. "That's new." I didn't sleep much after that. Not because my mind was racing, but because it wasn't. There were no thoughts chasing each other. No anxiety spirals, just a blank space where something important used to be. And the longer I lay there, the more I realized something uncomfortable. I had built my entire life around not needing anyone. It wasn't intentional at first. It never is. You miss one phone call. You cancel one dinner. You tell yourself you'll explain later. And one day, you look around and realize later never came. Her name was Laura. I hadn't thought about her in years, which should have been my first clue. Because when someone mattered once and you stop thinking about them entirely, it usually means you buried something unfinished. We met in our late 20s. She was grounded, quiet confidence, the kind of person who listened without waiting to speak. I liked that about her, and I hated how much she saw. She used to ask me questions I didn't know how to answer. What do you want this to become? Where do you see yourself staying? What scares you about slowing down? I'd smile, deflect, change the subject. I told myself I was being honest when I said, I don't like labels. What I really meant was, I don't know how to stay once something starts to matter. The night she left wasn't loud. No yelling, no slammed doors, just her standing in the hallway, coat on, keys in her hand. "I'm tired," she said, not angry, not accusing, just tired. "I can't keep being the only one here," she added. I nodded, told her I understood, and that was the problem. I understood, but I didn't stop her. I thought letting her go was the mature thing. I told myself love wasn't supposed to feel like pressure. I told myself I was protecting my freedom. But freedom, it turns out, gets very quiet when you don't know what to do with it. Years passed. I moved cities, changed jobs, upgraded apartments. From the outside, it looked like progress. Inside, everything stayed the same. Back in the grocery store parking lot, weeks later, I realized something I hadn't admitted before. I didn't miss her. I missed the version of myself who hadn't learned how to disappear yet. And that's when the thought hit me. Slow, heavy, unavoidable. What if this isn't a phase? What if this is who I become? That night, I found her name in my phone, still there, untouched. I didn't call. I wasn't ready to hear what she might say, but I stared at the screen long enough to understand one thing clearly. Avoidance doesn't look like fear. It looks like calm, like logic, like someone who tells himself he's fine. And that's when I realized something else. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about the moment I'd avoided, the one that was finally catching up to me. And I had no idea what I was supposed to do next. Not that night, not the next morning. I told myself I needed clarity first, which was just another way of buying time. But life has a way of interrupting the stories we tell ourselves. 2 days later, my mother called. We spoke maybe once every couple of months, enough to say we were in touch, not enough to know each other anymore. "I'm not sick," she said immediately. Parents always start like that when something is wrong. "But your father had a fall." I closed my eyes. "Is he okay?" "He says he is," she replied, which usually means he isn't. I drove back to the town I'd sworn I'd never return to. 4 hours of road I knew by memory. Every mile felt like peeling back a layer I'd spent years building over myself. The house looked smaller. Everything does when you return as someone else. My father was sitting in his chair, leg elevated, television on mute. He nodded when he saw me. "That was fast," he said. Not "thank you." Not "I'm glad you're here," just acknowledgement. It was his way. We didn't talk about the fall. We talked about traffic, gas prices, weather. Men in my family avoided pain the way others avoided debt, by pretending it didn't exist. That night, I slept in my old room. Same creak in the floor, same light from the street lamp cutting across the wall. I stared at the ceiling and felt something I hadn't expected. Not nostalgia, regret. The next morning, I ran into Laura at the diner. Of course I did. This town had always been small enough to trap you in your past. She was sitting by the window, coffee in hand, reading something on her phone. She looked steady. That hurt more than I thought it would. She saw me first. I knew because she didn't flinch. "Hey," she said. No surprise, no resentment, just recognition. We talked, carefully. She asked about my father. I asked about her life. She told me she'd stayed, built something quiet, something real. I nodded like I understood what that meant. "I thought you'd left for good," she said. "I thought I had," I replied. Neither of us smiled. There was a pause, the kind that invites honesty or ends the conversation. She broke it. "Why are you really here?" And that's when I felt it, the instinct to deflect, to joke, to keep things light. But something in me was tired of being clever. "I don't know how to stay," I said. The words surprised both of us. She didn't rush to fill the silence. She never had. "That was always the problem," she said gently. Not accusatory, just factual. We walked outside. Cold air, gray sky. She told me she wasn't waiting for me. She told me she didn't regret leaving. And then she said the thing that landed hardest. "I needed you to choose me without me asking." That afternoon, I sat with my father. He struggled to stand. I reached for him without thinking. Our hands met awkwardly. Neither of us commented on it. "You always left early," he said suddenly. Not angry, observant. "Figured you didn't want to be here." I swallowed. I didn't know how. He nodded like that made sense. That night, I understood something important. Avoidance wasn't just my habit. It was my inheritance. I stood outside the house, phone in my hand. Laura's name still there, still untouched. For the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt responsibility. And that scared me more. I pressed call. The line rang. Once, twice, and I realized something as I waited. Staying isn't about promises. It's about what you're willing to face when running stops working. She answered. "Hello?" I took a breath, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't look for the exit. She didn't need to. Sometimes the absence of resistance tells you more than enthusiasm ever could. We met the next evening. Same diner, same window, different weight in the air. She looked at me like someone assessing risk, not hope. I respected that. "I'm not here to fix the past," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "That's new." "I'm here because I finally understand what I was avoiding." She waited. I continued. "I thought staying meant losing myself." "And now?" she asked. "And now I think leaving cost me more." She didn't reach for my hand. She didn't soften. She asked the question that mattered. "What happens when this gets uncomfortable again?" I didn't answer immediately. Because this time, I wasn't searching for the right words. "I stay," I said. Not dramatically, not confidently, just honestly. She nodded. "Good," she said, "because I won't chase you again." I wouldn't have respected her if she did. I didn't move back. Not right away. I finished my work commitments, packed slowly, told people the truth when they asked why. I'm choosing something different, I said. Some nodded, some didn't understand. That was okay. My father recovered. We didn't become close, but we became present. Sometimes that's enough. Laura and I didn't rush. No labels, no declarations. Just time. Given, not promised. One night, months later, we sat on her porch, quiet, nothing remarkable happening. And that's when it hit me. This was what I used to run from, the stillness, the lack of escape. I used to think love was intensity, I said. She smiled. It's consistency, she replied. I don't say I'm fine anymore. I say I'm here. And I finally understand the difference. I didn't stay because I was sure. I stayed because running stopped working. And that turned out to be enough.